The prayer today is offered by Reverend Rachel Byram, and the Pledge of Allegiance is led by Senate Pages Emily Robbins of Brookings and Natalie Severson from Platte.
Please pray with me. Tender and compassionate God, in our final week of session, sustain in our hearts the spirit of loving kindness. Consecrate our work with and for the citizens of South Dakota. Preserve in our minds songs of peace and rhythms of justice. In your mercy, hear our prayer. Amen.
Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Beal, Boland, Bordeaux, Breitling, Castleberry, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Diedrich, Duhamel, Foster, Fry-Mueller, Hoffman, Hunoff, Johnson, Klum, Colbeck, Jack, Colbeck, Steve, Larson, Maher, Melhoff, Nesseban, Norstrup, Otten, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Schoenbeck, Shanefish, Dalzer, Tobin, Wheeler, Wick, Winkens, Zickman. We have a quorum, Mr. President.
Approval of the journal.
Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that the Secretary of the Senate has had under consideration the Senate Journal of the 35th day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction, and we hereby move the adoption of the report. Respectfully submitted, Senator Schoenbeck, Chair.
Comments on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that the Office of Engrossing and Enrolling has carefully compared Senate Bills 191, 118, and 174 and finds the same correctly enrolled. Senator Schoenbeck, Chair.
Messages.
Mr. President, I have the honor to inform the body that the House has failed to concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 1106 and no committee was appointed. Respectfully, Pat Miller, Chief Clerk. I'm just going to announce some scheduled conference committees. House Bill 1137 is going to meet at 9:30 in room 414. The Committee on Senate Bill 113 is going to meet at 2 p.m. in room 413. The Conference Committee for Senate Bill 134 is going to meet at 11:30 in room 423. Committee for Senate Bill 149 is going to meet at 11:30 in room 413. Did I just read that? And the Committee for Senate Bill 156 is going to meet at 11:30 in room 423. Is that going to be which one? I have 149 at 11:30 and 156 at 11:30 and 134 at 10:30.
I have a couple bills to sign in open session. President signing an act to prohibit the enactment of or implementation of an ordinance, resolution, or policy that prohibits the use of energy utility service. President is signing an act to expand eligibility for certain teachers who receive reduced tuition at Board of Regents institutions. President signing an act to revise certain provisions regarding the crime of rape and provide a penalty therefor. President signing an act to modify the debilitating medical condition for medical cannabis use. President signing an act to increase the maximum amount of dollars payable by the state to erect the headstone of deceased veterans. President signing an act to modify the acceptable conduct for practitioners related to medical cannabis. President signing an act to establish mandatory sentences for certain driving while under the influence violations. President signing an act to provide for that a female who undergoes an unlawful abortion may not be held criminally liable. Any announcements? Senator Crabtree.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that that the Senate Republicans head up to caucus immediately. So can we be at recess, please?
We will be recessed till 10:30. Senate will be,
Yeah, let's recess till 10:30 and then come back.
say that again?
10:30 and we'll be back down here on the floor.
Okay. Any other announcements? We are in recess, again, till 10:30. Senate will return to order. We will go to order of business 7, messages.
I have 4 messages from Pat Miller, the chief clerk at the House, and they're the committee appointments for 4 conference committees. The first one is Senate Bill 156. They have appointed Representatives Bartles, Carr, and Lesmeister. Senate Bill 134, they've appointed Kevin Jensen, Deutsch, and Tordston. Senate Bill 16, Deutsch, Koth, and Baumiller. And Senate Bill 149, Representatives Derby, Van Heusen, and Casson.
Motions and resolutions.
Senator Crabtree moves that the consideration of House amendments to Senate Bill 104 and Senate Bill 112 be moved to the bottom of today's calendar.
Comments on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Senator Frymuller and Senator Pischke move for the establishment of a select committee on discipline and expulsion, Rule 8S8-1, to investigate the conduct of Senator Lee Schoenbeck regarding disparaging comments made in both Senate committees and on the Senate floor.
Is there a second? Hearing none, motion dies for lack of second. Consideration of reports of conference committees.
Senator Hunoff moves that the report of the conference committee
We'll hold that, consider that conference committee report until Senator Hunoff is present.
Senator Crabtree moves that the report of the conference committee on 1141 as found on page 449 of the Senate Journal be adopted.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Comments on that motion? Any comments on the motion? Hearing none, the question before the Senate is Senator Crabtree's motion that the report on the Conference Committee on House Bill 1141 be adopted. Members in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Secretary will please call the roll.
Senator Beal. Aye. Bolin. Aye. Bordeaux. Aye. Brightling. Aye. Castleberry is excused. Crabtree. Aye. Davis. Aye. Dibert. Aye. Diedrich. Aye. Duhamel. Foster. Aye. Frymuller. Hoffman. Hunoff. Johnson. Klum. Colbeck Jack. No. Colbeck Steve. Larson. Maher.
Maher.
Melhoff. Nesseba. Norstrup. Otten. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Schoenbeck. Shanefish. Stalzer. Tobin. Wheeler. Wick. Wink. Zickman. Duhamel. Frymuller. Hoffman. Colbeck Steve. Norstrup. Pischke. Tobin. Mr. President, there are 27 yeas, 3 nays, and 5 excused.
So the motion having received an affirmative vote of the majority of members elect, the President declares the motion carried and the report is adopted.
Senator Hunoff moves that the report of the Conference Committee on House Bill 1022, as found on page 449 of the Senate Journal, be adopted.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Comments on that motion?
Thank you, Mr. President, members
Senator
of the
Hunoff.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. This is the amendment that came that we agreed to. Originally, when the Public Health Lab came and they asked for additional dollars because of the inflationary factor, they had asked for an additional of $7 million, so it would be a total of $12 million of addition. We went through several discussions with them. We first had the bill come out at $2 million, then they came back and said, could you give us a little bit more, because we wanted to do the design, so we increased it up to $5 million. In conference committee, they presented to us that in order to design the building that they needed the $12 million total so they could get the design done to have the space. This is also impacting other departments because their administration will relocate out of their building, another state agency will move into their building, and it's sort of a domino effect. So after the explanation, we agreed to that, but we also made it very clear to them that they are not coming back to ask for any additional dollars. So I would ask your support for the motion. Thank you.
Further remarks? Hearing none, the question before the Senate is Senator Hunoff's motion that the report on the Conference Committee on House Bill 1022 be adopted. Members in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. This is a 2/3 majority vote. Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Beal. Bolin. Bordeaux. Brightling. Castleberry, excused. Crabtree. Davis. Dibert. Diedrich. Duhamel, excused. Foster. Frymuller. Hoffman. Hunoff. Johnson. Klum. Colbeck Jack. Colbeck Steve, excused. Larson. Maher. Melhoff. Nesseba. Norstrup. Excused. Otten. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Schoenbeck. Shanefish. Stalzer. Tobin, excused. Wheeler. Wick. Wink. Sickman. Mr. President, there are 26 yeas, 4 nays, and 5 excused.
So the motion, having received an affirmative vote of 2/3 majority of the members elect, the president declares the motion carried, and the report is adopted. President has bills to sign. President signing an act to provide appropriations civil commitment for certain persons. President signing an act to amend provisions addressing guardianship and conservatorships. President signing an act to prohibit the ban of fuel gas appliances used by consumers. President signing an act to revise certain provisions regarding on-sale alcoholic beverage licenses for use at municipality-owned facilities. Madam Secretary.
We have a few more conference committees since last time. Senate Bill 113, 2 o'clock, room 413. Senate Bill 149, 11:30 in room 413. Senate Bill 156, 3 o'clock in room 423. And Senate Bill 16, 1 o'clock in room 413.
In the form of announcements, we also have the doctor of the day who needs no announcement. Welcome back, Dr. Shequin. Thank you again. I think the Capitol crud has been keeping you probably pretty busy. Announcements. Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be at recess here until 2 o'clock.
Recess until 2 o'clock. Any other announcements? You good, Boots?
That's it.
Hearing none, we are in recess until 2 o'clock p.m. Consideration of executive appointments.
Mr. President, the Committee on Senate State Affairs met this morning, and they had under consideration the nomination of Patrick Party of Minor County, Howard, South Dakota, to the position of Assistant Adjutant General Army. Returns the same with the recommendation that the Senate advise and consent to the confirmation of said appointment. Respectfully submitted, Senator Crabtree. The Senate proceeds to the consideration of the executive appointment of Patrick Party of Minor County, Howard, South Dakota, to the position of Assistant Adjutant General, Army.
The Senate will proceed with the consideration of the executive appointment of Patrick Party. Are there any remarks? Senator Schoenbeck.
Mr. President, members of the body, the State Affairs Committee recommended unanimously to this body that we advise and consent in the appointment of Patrick Party, who's a judge in Madison and Howard, South Dakota, serves in America's hometown. He's currently serving as the one-star Army General, but he was appointed after we were out of session last year. He's extremely well respected by his peers in the National Guard, by the people that appear before him on the bench. He's a strong member of the community, and I know the majority leader probably wishes he was here to tell you how much he knows what a great guy Patrick Hardy is, and I would hope that we could unanimously advise and consent in the appointment of Patrick Hardy to the Assistant Attorney General, the ATAG spot.
Further remarks? Hearing none, the question before the Senate is, does the Senate advise and consent to the executive appointment of Patrick Party? Members in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Secretary will please call the roll.
Senator Beal? Aye. Bolin? Aye. Bordeaux? Aye. Breitling? Aye. Castleberry? Castleberry's excused. Crabtree? Excused. Davis? Aye. Dibert? Aye. Diedrich? Aye. Duhamel? Aye. Foster? Excused. Frymuller? Hoffman? A minute here. I don't know. There was something wrong here. We're going to start over. You're going to have to say it again, just a minute. Okay, this is better. Senator Beal. Aye. Bolin. Aye. Bordeaux. Aye. Breitling. Aye. Castleberry's excused. Crabtree. Aye. Davis. Aye. Dibert. Aye. Diedrich. Aye. Duhamel. Aye. Foster. It's excused. Frymuller. Aye. Hoffman. Yes. Hunoff. Excused. Johnson. Aye. Klum. Aye. Colbeck Jack. Aye. Colbeck Steve. Aye. Larson. Aye. Maher. Aye. Melhoff. Aye. Neseba. Aye. Norstrup. Aye. Otten. Aye. Pischke. Aye. Reed. Aye. Roll. Aye. Schoenbeck. Aye. Shanefish. Aye. Stalzer. Aye. Tobin. Aye. Wheeler. Aye. Wick. Excused. Wink. Aye. Zickman. Excused. Mr. President, there are 30 yeas, 5 excused.
So the question having received an affirmative vote of the majority of members elect, the President declares that the appointment is confirmed. Consideration of reports of conference committees.
Mr. President, the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 134 met this morning. They had under consideration the disagreement of the two houses and returns the same with the recommendation that said bill be amended. And the amendment number is 134M, and it is published. Respectfully submitted, Senator Duhamel, Chair. Senator Duhamel moves that the report of the Conference Committee be adopted.
there a second? Comments on that motion? Senator Duhamel.
Thank you, Mr. President. My fellow senators, I hope you'll agree that we have a good product here. Senate Bill 134M voted unanimously in conference committee. Basically, it makes this, it makes sense to what the legislature is now asking of this oversight committee. It will include 4 legislators, 4 from the medical community, 2 law enforcement, and an addiction counselor for a total of 11. Thank you for your consideration.
Further remarks? Senator Wheeler.
I'd offer a substitute motion to do not concur and do not appoint.
Wheeler, substitute motion to not concur and not appoint has been seconded. Comments on the substitute motion, Senator Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the body, this oversight committee was formed in IM 26 by the vote of the voters. It has only been in existence really for about a year since it was appointed and has met, I believe, twice. And now we are going to completely remake its composition without really any evidence that it's not functioning currently like it's supposed to. The conference committee did not have any testimony, pro or con, from people involved in the process on this amendment that completely rewrote who's involved in this committee. The amendment doesn't change the purpose of the committee. The purpose of this committee is not regulatory. The medical marijuana program is regulated by the Department of Health. The purpose of this oversight board is more akin to helping it get started up. It's more akin to maybe the Workers' Compensation Council that has people from all sides come together to talk about the industry. That's not what this does. There's no patients involved. We've taken the 3 patients out of this committee now. There's no representation from anybody who has a license, one of the 4 establishments under medical marijuana. Now, it does say that the committee has to consult with them or take their testimony, but now the people that are going to be in charge of the committee are legislators, law enforcement, and medical professionals. Nobody actually necessarily who are using or distributing or manufacturing the product. The purpose of the committee was designed to make sure that it was working and getting product out and people were using it and having access. That is the main goals if you read the statute that I read to everybody yesterday. We're now getting so far away from that I asked the body to just kill this bill, come back next year with a clean bill that if you want to change this thing so much, we need to have a lot more input from industry, from patients, from more people involved than what has happened right now. The process is not right to make this big of a change to the statute. I ask you to join me in not concurring. Thank you.
Further remarks on the substitute motion? Senator Colbeck.
Well, I tried to make it all year without speaking on a bill or an amendment, but I would ask you to resist the motion, the substitute motion. We did have a conference committee, and it came out of the conference committee 6-0, which I think is sometimes difficult to do. What it is, and the premise of the whole amendment, is to get the people who are using or patients, medical marijuana, is to get them out of the rulemaking process. Very similar to you don't have a company make the rules to govern themselves. That was never the intention. I don't think that was ever the people's intention of this bill. So I think that as it came out of the conference committee, it's a very good bill. And yes, in the last section, it specifically states who to take testimony from. You can take testimony from parents, you can take testimony from patients, you can do all that stuff. But the premise of the bill expands how many legislators are on there. Right now we have 1 Senate and 1 House. That'll go to 2 Senate and 2 House. And then when you make a committee like that, what you have to consider is who's going to have a vote. Do you think someone who has a condition like glaucoma or anything that they need to use medical marijuana, do you think that they should be able to vote on something that's going to affect them? You need to keep these boards unbiased. You need to hopefully keep them so that we come out with good legislation, and I hope that you would resist the substitute motion.
Further remarks on the Wheeler substitute motion? Any further remarks? Senator Duhamel? No. We're on the substitute motion. Senator Wheeler, any further remarks? In closing, any member wish to speak before Senator Wheeler speaks in closing? Hearing none, Senator Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, this is not a rulemaking body. It does not have authority to make rules. It was simply designed to bring people involved together to then provide some recommendations, to look at research, to help guide decision makers. But it is not rulemaking. It is not regulatory. We must get away from that, get back to the original intention of the bill, of the committee as it came through IM 26. Thank you.
Hearing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is a substitute motion from Senator Wheeler to not concur and not appoint. Members in favor of that motion will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Beal? Nay. Bolin? No. Bordeaux? Aye. Brightling? No. Castleberry's excused. Crabtree? No. Davis? Aye. Dybert? No. Diedrich? No. Duhamel? No. Foster? Aye. Freimuller? No. Hoffman? No. Hunoff?
Hunoff.
Johnson? No. Plum? Colbeck Jack? No. Colbeck Steve? No. Larson? Aye. Maher? Aye. Melhoff? No. Nesseba? Aye. Norstrup? No. Otten? Fischke? Aye. Reed? Aye. Roll? Aye. Schoenbeck? No. Janefish? Aye. Stalzer? No. Tobin? No. Wheeler? Aye. Wick? No. Wink? No. I have to go back here a second. Senator Wink, you were no? Okay. And then Senator Zickman is excused, and Senator Hunoff votes no. Mr. President, there are 11 yeas, 22 nays, and 2 excused.
The Wheeler substitute motion, having failed to receive a majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared lost. We are back to the original motion, Senator Duhamel's motion that the report on the conference committee on 134 be adopted. Further remarks on the Duhamel motion? Hearing none, Senator Duhamel in closing.
Thank you, my fellow legislators. I appreciate the support. This is the grand compromise. This is closer to what other states have with an oversight committee. It's asking the committee to do and the things that we want them to do moving forward, and looking at the medical conditions and how it's moving, keeping it in the lane of medical and not recreational. Thank you for your consideration.
Hearing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is Senator Duhamel's motion that the report on conference committee on Senate Bill 134 be adopted. Members in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Beal? Aye. Bolin? Aye. Bordeaux? Nay. Brightling? Aye. Castleberry's excused. Crabtree? Aye. Davis? No. Dybert? Aye. Diedrich? Aye. Duhamel? Aye. Foster? Nay. Freimuller? Aye. Hoffman? Yes. Hunoff? Aye. Johnson? Aye. Klum? Aye. Colbeck Jack? Aye. Colbeck Steve? Aye. Larson? No. Maher? No. Melhoff? Aye. Nesseba? No. Norstrup? Aye. Otten? Aye. Fischke? No. Reed? No. Roll? No. Schoenbeck? Aye. Shanefish? No. Stalzer? Aye. Tobin? Aye. Wheeler? No. Wick? Aye. Wink? Aye. Zickman is excused. Mr. President, there are 22 yeas, 11 nays, and 2 excused. Otten votes nay. There are 21 yeas, 12 nays, and 2 excused.
The motion having received an affirmative vote of the majority of members elect, the president declares the motion carries and the report is adopted. Senator Colbeck.
If we could have everyone from Brandon.
Granted.
stand up. Personal privilege.
Granted.
So, we saved the best for last here, folks. On the last week, we ended up with Sunshine Pulled Pork, and we have our students and our Brandon Chamber of Commerce here. So if we could just all thank them very much for coming from America's town, Brandon.
Welcome to the Senate. Senator Klum. Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, actually, we saved the best for last because the Mount Vernon Senior Government class is here with their teacher, Mr. Christensen, and I'd like them to stand and be recognized.
Welcome to the Senate. I think if you're going to take on Brandon, surrounding them's out. Senator Stalzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, so far this year, I have not introduced my bride of 55 years, but
Would
she
you
is-
like a personal privilege
I
to
would
do
like
that?
the personal privilege to do that.
Granted.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, I'd like to introduce my wife, Carol.
Welcome to the Senate, Cheryl. Madam Secretary.
Mr. President, the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 105 considered the disagreement of the two houses and amended Senate Bill 105. The amendment was 105B, and it's been published. Respectfully submitted, Senator Hunoff, Chair. Senator Hunoff moved that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 105 be adopted.
Is there a second? Comments on that motion?
Mr. President.
Senator Hunoff.
Thank you, and members of the body. This was a bill that was to work out the information for community-based providers, looking at, we'll call it the shift, so that each year as their analysis is made on as to what their costs are for providing those services, we have that data, they know what formula is being used, and we can track what is happening, if they're keeping up or if we are keeping up in what their costs are. This bill was originally intended to put it in statute. However, in the committee, we were able to discuss it, and we are going to do a letter of intent. So I would encourage not to concur and not to reappoint. But that's not what I heard.
No.
I think that's what the committee report says, and so we're adopting the report.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So to be clear, the motion from Hunoff was that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 105 be adopted. Further remarks? Hearing no further remarks, in question before the Senate is Senator Hunoff's motion that the report on Conference Committee of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 105 be adopted. Members in favor vote aye. Those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Beal? Aye. Bolin? Aye. Bordeaux? Aye. Breitling? Aye. Castleberry? Excuse. Crabtree? Aye. Davis? Aye. Dibert? Aye. Diedrich? Aye. Duhamel? Aye. Foster? Aye. Frymuller? Aye. Hoffman? Yes. Hunoff? Aye. Johnson? Aye. Klum? Aye. Colbeck Jack? Aye. Colbeck Steve? Aye. Larson. Maher. Melhoff. Nesseba. Norstrup. Otten. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Schoenbeck. Shanefish. Stalzer. Tobin. Wheeler. Wick. Wink. Zickman is excused. Mr. President, there are 33 yeas, 2 excused.
So the motion having received an affirmative vote of the majority of members elect, the president declares the motion carried and the report is adopted.
This is a conference committee report on Senate Bill 149. The conference committee on Senate Bill 149 respectfully reports that it has considered the disagreement of the two houses and returns the same with the recommendation that the Senate and the House do not concur with the amendments to Senate Bill 149 and do not appoint a new committee. Respectfully submitted, Senator Hunoff, Chair. Senator Hunoff moves that the report of the conference committee on Senate Bill 149 be adopted.
Comments on that motion? Senator Hunoff.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Well, this bill was hopefully to track how the Medicaid expansion dollars, primarily we were looking at the 5% that the feds are going to pick up in the coming year and the following year, and how those dollars would be going directly towards Medicaid expansion to establish that we're going to have enough dollars when the $66 million that we've allocated is no longer, I mean, that's the startup, but we've got to have continuation. Again, we had a discussion and we're trying to develop a tracking system. We heard that we can have it done that way and that we will have reports on a monthly basis so we know exactly where those dollars are going, and that is going to be completed through a letter of intent through a joint appropriations. I would ask you to support the motion. Thank you.
Further remarks on the Hunoff motion? Hearing none, the question before the Senate is Senator Hunoff's motion that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 149 be adopted. Members in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Secretary will please call the roll.
Senator Beal? Aye. Bolin? Aye. Bordeaux? Aye. Breitling? Aye. Castleberry's excused. Crabtree? Aye. Davis? Aye. Dibert? Aye. Diedrich? Aye. Duhamel? Aye. Foster? Aye. Freimuller? Aye. Hoffman? Yes. Hunoff? Aye. Johnson? Aye. Klum? Aye. Colbeck Jack? Aye. Colbeck Steve? Aye. Larson? Aye. Maher? Aye. Melhoff? Aye. Nesseba? Aye. Norstrup? Aye. Otten? Aye. Pischke? Aye. Reed? Aye. Roll? Aye. Schoenbeck? Aye. Shanefish? Aye. Stalzer? Aye. Tobin? Wheeler? Aye. Wick? Aye. Wink? Aye. Zickman is excused. Tobin? Mr. President, there are 33 yeas, 2 excused.
So the motion having received an affirmative vote of the majority of members elect, the president declares the motion carried and the report is adopted. We'll do announcements. Madam Secretary.
The Conference Committee on Senate Bill 59 will meet at 4 p.m. in room 413.
Other announcements? Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll be at ease until 4:45. Republicans watch for a text if we are going to get together before then. So 4:45.
Any other announcements? Hearing none, we are at ease until 4:45. Being no objections, we'll revert to order business 5, reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that Senate Bills 167, 91, 118, 159, and 174 were delivered to Her Excellency the Governor for her approval at 4:40 p.m. this afternoon. Respectfully, Lee Schoenbeck, Chair.
Messages.
Mr. President, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the House has adopted the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 105 and Senate Bill 149. Respectfully submitted, Pat Miller, Chief Clerk.
Motions and resolutions.
Senator Crabtree moves that the consideration of House amendments to Senate Bill 104 and Senate Bill 112 be deferred until Thursday, March 9th, the 37th legislative day.
Comments on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Senator Crabtree moves that when we adjourn today, we adjourn to convene at 9 a.m. on Thursday, March 9th, the 37th legislative day.
Comments on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Consideration of reports of conference committees.
Mr. President, the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 16 respectfully reports that it has considered the disagreement of the two houses and returns the same with the recommendation that said bill be amended as follows. On page 1, line 4 of the House Engrossed Bill, delete $1,869 and insert $6,250,000. Respectfully submitted, Senator Wick, Chair. Senator Wick moves that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 16 be adopted.
Comments on that motion? Senator Wick.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee had a chance to meet and we unanimously agreed to move the amount back to the suggested $6,250,000 that was originally in the governor's budget, and I recommend we concur. Thank you.
Further remarks? Hearing none, the question before the Senate is Senator Wick's motion that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 16 be adopted. Members in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. This is a 2/3 majority vote. Secretary will please call the roll.
Senator Beal. Aye. Bolin. Aye. Bordeaux. Aye. Breitling. Aye. Castleberry. Excused. Crabtree. Aye. Davis. Aye. Dibert. Aye. Diedrich. Aye. Duhamel. Excused. Foster. Aye. Fry-Mueller. Hoffman. Hunoff. Johnson. Klum. Colbeck Jack. Colbeck Steve. Larson. Maher. Melhoff. Nesseba. Norstrup. Otten. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Schoenbeck. Shanefish. Stalzer. Tobin. Wheeler. Wick. Wink. Zickman is excused. Mr. President, there are 27 yeas, 3 nays, and 5 excused.
So the motion having received an affirmative vote of 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the motion carried and the report is adopted.
Mr. President, the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 59 respectfully reports that it has considered the disagreement of the two houses and returns the same with the recommendation that said bill be amended as follows. The amendment is 59F and it's online and it should be on your desks. Senator Wheeler moves that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 59 be adopted.
Comments on that motion? Senator Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. President. The agreement in the conference committee was $5 million for equipment only. And it also requires that schools partner with other schools or be in multi-districts. I ask you to adopt the report. Thank you.
Further remarks? Hearing none, the question before the Senate is Senator Wheeler's motion that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 59 be adopted. Members in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. This is a 2/3 majority vote. Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Beal? No. Bolin? Aye. Bordeaux? Aye. Breitling? Aye. Castleberry is excused. Crabtree? Aye. Davis? Aye. Dybert? Aye. Diedrich? Aye. Duhamel is excused. Foster? Aye. Frymuller? No. Hoffman? No. Hunoff? Aye. Johnson? Aye. Klum? Aye. Colbeck Jack? No. Colbeck Steve? Aye. Larson? Excused. Maher? Excused. Melhoff? Aye. Nesseba? Aye. Norstrup? Aye. Otten? Aye. Pischke? No. Reed? Aye. Roll? Aye. Schoenbeck? Aye. Shanefish? Aye. Stalzer? Aye. Tobin? Aye. Wheeler? Aye. Wick? Aye. Wink? Aye. Zickman is excused. Mr. President, there are 25 yeas, 5 nays, and 5 excused.
So the motion having received an affirmative vote of 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the motion carries and the report is adopted. President has one bill to sign. President is signing an act to prohibit certain restrictions in employment contracts. Announcements. Senator Breitling.
Joint Appropriations will convene at 8:45 tomorrow morning to finish the '24 budget.
Any other announcements? I think our secretary had to powder her nose. Here she comes with her freshly powdered nose.
There's a couple conference committees in the morning. House Bill 1137 at 8 a.m. in room 414, and Senate Bill 113 at 9:30 a.m. in room 412.
Any other announcements? Madam Secretary.
Senator Bolin moves that the Senate do now adjourn.
Members in favor of the motion to adjourn will say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senate is adjourned.